in Congress. At minimum, there should be a long wait period. I think this is kind of a common sense thing that a lot of people could agree on. So Ted Cruz came back and said, here's something I don't often say. On this point, I agree with AOC. Indeed, I have long called for a lifetime ban on former members of Congress becoming lobbyists. The swamp would hate it, but perhaps a chance for some bipartisan cooperation. So yeah, that's interesting stuff.
It is.
She responded, at Ted Cruz, if you're serious about a clean bill, then I'm down. Let's make a deal. If we can agree on a bill that with no partisan snuck-in clauses, no poison pills, etc., which pretty much means, for those who know, is like a little clause in the bill that would be completely unrelated to the bill at hand, saying something like that would be a Republican priority that would be stuck in there. Just a straight, clean ban on members of Congress becoming paid lobbyists. Then I'll co-lead the bill with you. So like that could really work, and I think it'd be very exciting, just at a minimum, at a very, very minimum, to see this bill come through with some bipartisan cooperation from someone who I personally have a very high opinion of, and AOC, and a very low opinion of in Ted Cruz.
It's funny because we have very opposite opinions on those people, but this is what gives it credibility. The fact that these people are on total opposite ends of the spectrum and have the same feeling, which I think most Americans feel is kind of insane, that you can make regulation 1 minute and then be employed by the company affected by that regulation. The next day, nothing stops it. Nothing prohibits it. It's absurd. So Andrew Yang said something very interesting. He said we should raise the pay of everyone to $1 million. Raise the pay for congressmen and administrators, high-level administrators in government, to $1 million a year, and then ban them for life from lobbying.
I mean,
it's clear that the money is not in the government service. It's in the private sector afterward.
Yeah, that's a main reason why they do it, and especially why they establish all these connections with the donors and stuff like that.
Of course. I mean,
it pays off down the road.
Now, if I had been elected to Congress in the last decade and was counting on a private sector living, I'd be a little annoyed at this.
Yeah.
How about grandfathering me in? But that indicates, like nearly corrupt intent up front. So.
Yeah, this is kind of the rare bill that, like, people like AOC and Ted Cruz would agree on because they're kind of more outside the spectrum. Then I think people like Joe Manchin or like Susan Collins, like those people who are much more close to the center and I think much more connected to kind of these like lobbying interests and who would want to go lobby, I think they'd be much more against this. But I don't mean personally. I think Ted Cruz is also very connected to big money as well. So
show me somebody who isn't. I mean, honestly, if you spend enough time in Washington, you're going to get connected to big money. AOC's got her own money problems. I mean, everyone's got money problems.
What is AOC's money problems?
Oh, she's got some. She was her campaign manager opened 2 different LLCs for her campaign, and one of them was used to help. It was like a campaign in a box operation where they would use money, donated money to raise awareness of challengers to incumbents, and so you would have the idea, which is pretty clever actually, is just campaign as a service. Just you find the candidate, and the candidate can use services that are paid for by this LLC. But
are you talking about Justice Democrats?
Huh?
Are you talking about because she ran under the Justice Democrats organization? She was supporting them.
So, but there were 2 different LLCs. One was intended for her campaign, one was intended for the other people's campaigns, but
Yeah, that
her
was intended.
campaign manager, he diverted money he shouldn't have diverted. I mean,
I don't think
if
that's. I don't really buy
no,
that. That's much of a
it's
scandal.
it's a all my the only point I have no opinion on either way. I think this is just Washington at work. People try to play the gotcha game. Uh, but my point is that you run into money troubles in Washington. I don't care who you are, because people are over your shoulder because of your politics. You're going to have opposing uh, watchdog groups counting at every one of your nickels. You're going to run into money trouble no matter what. Uh, the bottom line is that those it's not a big leap from accidentally diverting money to intentionally diverting money, and then having money come in from groups you support, and then cozying up because you write a bill that favors a cause that some CEO takes interest in, and then next thing you know, you're like, hey, you know what? You're great. When you're done with this stint here in Washington, you would be great in my corporate out my corporate structure. I need someone who advocates. You know what? It already stinks.
Yeah, I'm sure they eat lunch with these people like all the time. And
all the time.
Out for dinner, have a fundraiser, all that stuff.
Exactly. I mean, who's shocked? Who's shocked that where the public and government structures interface, that there's going to be swirling money. It's just how it goes.
Yeah, I mean, these people are more connected with each other. K Street and like Washington, the Capitol Hill, is more connected with each other than the voters are to the Capitol Hill, which is the problem.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
All right, yeah. Speaking of someone who is very connected inside Washington, Joe Biden, he's been criticized by President Donald Trump on Monday. I think this was really interesting. He criticized former VP Joe Biden for his involvement in passing the 1994 Violent Crime Control and Law Enforcement Act, which was very, very, turned out to be very, very unpopular and didn't really work out so well. Trump, with a very interesting and I think very effective tweet, what he said is, anyone associated with the 1994 crime bill will not have a chance of being elected. In particular, African Americans will not be able to vote for you, Trump tweeted. I, on the other hand, was responsible for criminal justice reform, which had just tremendous support and helped fix the bad 1994 bill. Super predator was the term associated with the 1994 crime bill that Sleepy Joe Biden was so heavily involved in passing. This was a dark period in American history. But has Sleepy Joe apologized? No. In fact, he's actually doubled down on that crime bill. That, I mean, it's kind of a little bit of a mix in conservative circles. Like some support it, some don't. Joe, I think Trump really sees kind of a loophole on this and kind of somewhat, even, this is a crazy thing, attacking Joe Biden from the left, which is something Bernie Sanders would have done. And I think is the exact same strategy that I think he used most effectively. And I really don't think he has that much of a chance of winning even a large percentage, maybe more like 2% of like black voters. I don't know how many he won last time, but I think where he could really be effective is depressing the black vote for Joe Biden, and that's what makes him so vulnerable. There's a lot of low black turnout, and that's why I think one of the many reasons why Joe Biden is so ineffective as a candidate. Because not only has he got like everything Hillary Clinton had, like Joe Biden has twice as much of. Like that's the insane thing. Like whether it's on race relations, she said the super predator term. He wrote the super predator bill. Like there was like he served the credit card companies. He was deeply tied to Wall Street. Like that is like such deep ties, and I don't see how Trump doesn't completely seize on this and use the same strategy to great effect. And like, and one of the reasons why I support Bernie is because he sure as hell is not going to be able to use that strategy on Bernie Sanders.
No, but he's also, I think Bernie Sanders has another pile of rocks tied to his feet He's basically an avowed socialist, and that may not scare a lot of people anymore, but it scares people who remember socialism.
Yeah, I think we disagree. I think if he can get young voters to turn out, especially in the Democratic primary, and really also in the election as well, like that is going to be huge, and I think he can do that better.
Young voters are future Republicans, so we'll see what happens.
A few years down the road, but they're still young at this point.
Yes, they're young. Exactly. Unfortunately, they're not going to be able to claw back Medicare for all. They're not going to be able to claw back Elizabeth Warren getting into private sector boards of directors. But we digress. Let's go back to the crime bill thing. I think Donald Trump has the luxury of throwing grenades from the outside. He wasn't anywhere near that crime bill, and he probably would have supported it.
Yeah, he probably he said things like that, similar sentiments to the crime bill in the past.
Exactly.
But he didn't support it.
That's but this is pure political theater at this point. I am so tired of people in public life, politicians, being judged by current standards for acts that they performed at the moment in history. It's the same way, Thomas Jefferson was a slave owner. Yes, he was, but he also wrote the Declaration of Independence. These were the noble thoughts in his mind, and he was simply operating his farm by a standard means that made it profitable rather than unprofitable, just like anyone else. So did he own slaves? Yes, but he owned them in the context of his century. He didn't own them in the context of 2019. So this same thing is happening with this crime bill stuff. Joe Biden wasn't the only Democrat who voted for that crime bill. Please, it had
none of those
to
other
be.
guys are running for president.
Exactly, but big deal. He is representative of that era, and having lived in a big city during that era, it was easy to see why people were concerned. An incredibly disproportionate amount of crime being committed by such a small number of people. If you're a legislator, that's the remedy. So I don't begrudge Joe Biden any of that. It's unfortunate that he's going to be judged this way now.
Yeah, and I mean, really, the only thing that I really doubt that his base is the other side of it. I really doubt that his base is going to hate this crime bill anyway. I think they like it. They probably love that crime bill.
I agree. So what's wrong with the Democratic Party? That they are going to, I am waiting for the real brickbats to be thrown around. Right now,
a few more months, debates are coming up.
Yeah, most people are playing nice. It won't be nice for very long.
I think it especially won't be nice once Bernie Sanders if Bernie Sanders gets ahead. If he looks like he's going to win, then that will be full freak out mode, because that's like the alarm bells. Like, you got Nancy Pelosi, Pete Buttigieg even attending these Stop Bernie Sanders dinners, where there's some pretty hilarious articles, a lot of donors getting mad. It's like, why won't Bernie Sanders come and call me and ask for money? And so we're worried about losing our positions as ambassadors and do these kind of make work positions to Starbucks baristas or something like that, because they're the ones who really support his campaign. So it's very funny stuff. But still, on the other hand, it really could lead to a pretty insane backlash from the donor class if he gets close.
Yeah. Well, I think that you can tell from